So with this video in particular, I wanted to talk about the possibilities of Deku having his own quirk in the My Hero Academia story. Now obviously we know that he has a quirk that was passed down to him, that's been passed down for generations, through and through. Eventually All Might gave it to him. Obviously the one for all, and it's just some incredible strength, incredible feats, essentially Superman-esque type of powers, you know, the strength to really just mess some things up, so to speak. So, you know, we know Deku has had that up until this point. Obviously he started off in the story, and really to dive into this discussion, because you got to kind of start at the beginning of all of this, where we first found out the whole, you know, gig of this whole thing, you know, the whole little quirk, so to speak, of the series is essentially that the main character is quirkless. He doesn't have superpowers in a superpower filled world with villains and all sorts of stuff like that, and it's a obviously big deal to him because he looks up to people like All Might. He wanted to be a superhero and whatnot. So going back to the beginning is very important, because there's very small details that, who knows, it could just be that they will never be addressed again, or in the future, distant or close, it could be once again addressed, because at the end of the day, a lot of times manga artists and manga creators, they go back and they try to bridge gaps and say this was actually foreshadowing, and it could very well be foreshadowing that we're not even really closely looking at. But what I'm referring to is in the beginning of My Hero Academia, when he's at the doctor, he's a little kid at this point, Deku, he's with his mom, and they're talking about him not having a quirk yet. Obviously they talked about the joints and people's feet, and the difference between Deku, who doesn't have powers, which I think they said 20% of the world of My Hero Academia, they don't have powers at all, no quirk whatsoever. Deku is supposedly part of that 20, because I believe he has either, he's missing a joint, or he has too many joints compared to the people that have powers, and it was left at that, and pretty much it was like, he doesn't have any superpowers. You gotta think for a second though, because something else that was mentioned, which a lot of people don't even really remember this, or don't even realize that this was a thing, the superpowers of people like his mother and his father. In the beginning of My Hero Academia, it is indeed mentioned what powers both of them have. His father can breathe fire, and his mother, I believe she has similar powers to like Uraraka, except she could just like pull things towards her, if I'm not mistaken it was described as. So kind of something similar. Instead of making a float though, she could like literally almighty push things in a way. So that's pretty much what we got in regards to the powers that his parents have. And in the My Hero Academia world, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the times the kids come out either with a combination of the parents' powers or one of the parents' powers, something along the lines of that. I mean, look at Todoroki, for example. He has a perfect blend of his mother's powers and his father's powers. His mother had the ice, if I'm not mistaken, and his father had the fire, and bam, look at his incredible powers. As of right now, we know that Deku has the one for all that was passed down to him, but this isn't like the One Piece world where you can only have one devil fruit. You could potentially have multiple quirks within you. Who's to say that Deku, as of right now, and the other 20% of the population that are jointless or have too many joints, again, I want to say is that they're missing a joint. I could be wrong, and it could be the opposite, but I want to say it's that. Those people, who knows if it's not necessarily that they don't have a quirk. And again, if you go back to the beginning of the story and even look at My Hero Academia as a whole, yeah, they know about quirks, but it hasn't been that long that quirks have been around to the point where it's like, holy shit, they know everything about it. There's still a huge mystery surrounding quirks and what happened, because again, going back to the beginning of the story, which is all essential to kind of finding out regarding Deku and where he's leading, if he could even have another quirk that was his own to begin with. In the beginning of the story, it started off as, I believe, one baby that was glowing and he was like gold in the nighttime, and then the population kept going and going, and again 80% of it became quirk users and had powers, and so on and so forth, and then the babies kept on having them, so on and so on. And again, Deku's parents breathe fire, pull things towards him. Immediately I'm thinking of, like, you know, other anime, and obviously I said like Almighty Push, which if I'm not mistaken, is that what it is? I forget, I get confused with the Pain thing, but I'm talking about when Pain drags somebody towards him. That was some cool shit, and again, that's what it reminds me of. Hey, if Deku had that power, he could do it. And the breathing fire, again, I don't know if it's that he could breathe fire on just like straight up breathing fire, or he can make maybe objects like light on fire. If it's going to be a combination, for example, that Deku one day has these both powers alongside having, you know, one for all, then you got to think, well, what would it be? Because if it's like some crazy combination, I don't think they're just going to have, because honestly, I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, and I hate it because, yeah, I enjoyed it at the time. I ain't gonna lie to you. I will tell you when I liked the shitty movie. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the film Sky High, but essentially it was a high school people with superheroes, and it was kind of corny. It felt very Disney-like, and in the end, the character, because throughout the film, he didn't have any powers, if I'm not mistaken, and then in the end, he had both of his parents' powers. He had the ability to fly and super strength, if I'm not mistaken, something along the lines of that. If they did it in that fashion with Deku, I feel as though I'd straight up think, oh my god, Sky High, get it away from me, get it, oh! Again, maybe I'm a hypocrite, because at the time, I really enjoyed it, and that's probably what set up for me one day getting into My Hero Academia, and honestly, back in the day, that got me even more into comic books and shit, so it did its job, I guess, right, in a good way of making me more into comic books and stuff like that. But again, it was just like, whoa, very, very cheesy. So if Deku comes out with both of those again, it would just feel like, oh, so generic. Oh, why? I'm hoping that it's some sort of combination and a new power, so to speak. Maybe he can light objects on fire as he's pulling them towards him or something like that, which again, it's a combination of both, but essentially he can only do that, you know what I mean? He can only pull objects and then light them on fire. He can't just light things on fire. They have to be maybe in motion as they're pulling towards him, or something along the lines of that, or as he's pulling somebody, they light immediately, they burst into flames. I don't know, it could be really crazy, but again, there's a lot of fire users in anime and manga, and that's probably one of the reasons why the writer isn't gonna want to do that. I think Deku having the super strength or whatever, looking up to All Might as if he's like, you know, a Jimmy Olsen to Superman, like Jimmy Olsen living out his dreams. That's kind of what it feels like in a way, but he's gonna want to continue to go that route, and I don't really see, at the very least in the near future, all of a sudden these new powers coming in. Now, we've seen from time to time, Deku has hit walls. He's hit walls where essentially he's had to change the method of, or the style for that matter, of how he fights. We've seen in the beginning it was a straight up fist. Now he's moved to using his legs because his fists were, you know, his arms were breaking from the amount of pressure from using the power, especially when he would use like damn near 100% or 100%. I think he would use full on power. He would destroy his body and his arms would shatter and everything. He can't really do that anymore, so he started using his legs. Who's to say it won't get to a point where the legs won't be enough, or he can't maneuver enough, and then they're like, well, it's an ass pull to some people, I guess. I think it's an amazing foreshadowing and an amazing setup in a world where you inherit your parents' genes. Who's to say that, again, these people aren't just with the quirk and it's suppressed? Maybe you have to work a certain amount your body in order to release the quirk, and 20% of the nation just never did that. Deku is a rare person that he, no matter what, never gave up and has trained his body to the point where he's already up to the point of, I think he was using like 20% of One for All and shit like that. His body has been pushed to a very deep limit. So who's to say that upon doing that, he hasn't awakened the ability to use some of his other quirks, or as we go along, when he gets closer to 100%, he couldn't do that. I think that that would be a great way to segue from, instead of going from like using his legs and the 20% to 100%, maybe somewhere in between he can do a maneuvering and like take a break from, you know, just using always One for All and have some crazy powers. Or maybe he could do a combination of a fire punch in a way, or pulling somebody and then punching them with fire. That'd work for me. Like, yo, he'd knock someone's lights out. So there's a possibility there. Or it could be something totally different, something neither his parents have. Maybe it's his grandpa, maybe it's something totally out of this world. Who knows? Maybe we've already been seeing it active and not even noticing. Maybe he has a luck quirk, so to speak, and that's why he's gotten lucky for everything that's happened to him up until this point. But then again, damn, if he's had the luck quirk, that means that you gotta question if he's done anything himself this entire time, or it's been his quirk that's gotten him through things. I guess they'd be able to explain like the quirk only works in certain times, so it was really him. There's that. But anyway, still, I think with the formula of what My Hero Academia has tried to do is, again, a very simple story that we've seen time and time again of, you know, the rags to riches, not having nothing and working their way and becoming great. Maybe they might just want to stick to that because essentially you give Deku, he has his own quirk now, then it's not the same anymore as this quirkless kid riding off of All Might. Now it's like, oh, well, he got his own anyway, he's not that bad, you know? And again, that's some major power to all of a sudden be able to pull people, fire out of the mouth, punching people. That would definitely be a lot of powers to have for a main character, but it could be dope if it's done in increments, right? Kind of curious what you guys think about this though. First of all, do you think there's a possibility any point in the story of My Hero Academia that Deku could reveal that he actually has his own quirk, or find out that he has his own quirk? And if he does, what would it be? Would it be one of his parents, a combination, something totally new? Or do you think that the author's just gonna strictly stay with, nah, he's quirkless, he got his quirk from getting One for All, and that's stat. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd show a whole different selection of moves and art that we could see of, again, fire punches and dragging people with fire, all sorts of things that could happen, but he might not want to cross into Todoroki's territory of fire, or, you know, Endeavor for that matter. So kind of curious on that. And your overall thoughts of this discussion, again, something that I've been thinking about for a while. Does Deku have his own quirk, and it's basically, you know, dormant in his body, and he's one of, you know, the 20% that he can actually unlock these abilities, and that's why nobody's ever done it before, and it's left as is, that 20% don't have it. When they do, it's just really tightly sealed, and when it comes out, it'll be very strong. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day, and remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Bow. Have an awesome day.